Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our workshop, Automated Product Data Work. It's easier than you think. My name is Jason Birch, and I'm going to be your moderator today. I wanted to start it off with a few housekeeping notes. Today's workshop is being recorded. Everybody, with the exception of the presenters, will be muted today. So if you need to communicate with us, please use the chat box within the webinar control panel. There's going to be some time at the end of the presentation for Q&A. However, if you have questions during the workshop, I'll be monitoring the chat box throughout. I'll bring up an appropriate time or an appropriate pause in the presentation, or I'll save it until the Q&A if that works better. That's it for housekeeping. So I'm now going to introduce you to our two presenters today, Nelson Valderrama and Eric Hells. Nelson Valderrama is the founder and CEO of Intuilize. He's a skilled data-driven strategist who's focused on boosting profits for small and mid-sized distributors. With 25 plus years of experience in all aspects of the wholesale industry, Nelson continues to support businesses by discovering hidden competitive advantages and leveraging data's potential in the modern digital economy. He has pioneered AI-driven pricing and inventory optimization, providing decision makers with accurate, visible, and real-time ready data. He's ready to help industrial distributors thrive. And Eric Hells, who is the founder and CEO of Wrangleworks, which is an AI-powered SaaS platform for distributors to automate data work. Informed by 30 years of delivering enterprise software, he's on a mission to eliminate the widespread challenges of dirty data. Eric began his career as an engineer in the nuclear Navy and calls Austin, Texas home. Gentlemen, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Jason, for the introduction. And thank you, everyone, for making the time. For those guys that are listening to us live, thank you for your time, as well for everyone that is watching this recording. So let's go to work. Let's start with the presentation. So introduction. The idea here for Eric and myself is to share with you guys a simplified framework where we can demonstrate to you that data management and inventory optimization is easier than you think. And as Jason summarized, Eric has around 30 years of experience, myself around 28. So we have been feeling the pain that some of you guys either felt or you're feeling at this point. So today we'll learn about three things. One is how to standardize and how to classify products. The second thing is how to transfer messy data into pristine product using Excel. I'm very excited because Eric has a fantastic demo for you guys. I think it's going to blow your mind. It blew mine. So definitely it's going to be fantastic. And the last one is how to improve product taxonomy can help improve your inventory. And since you guys are watching this webinar, I want to leave you with this thought out here. This is a MIT lecturer. And he's saying that since we're living in a world of more data, that people that are more data literate are going to win. And I don't think that's the only attribute that you may have as a professional, but definitely being a data literate person is going to help you out big time in your professional life and as well in your business. So let's go into bad data. Let's start with bad data. And I do believe that bad data is a barrier for business growth. And I put this in a couple of, I would say, buckets here. I love buckets. So I have 5 buckets for you. The first bucket is going to be the sales. So when you have bad data, you're going to struggle on your sales because either you don't have clear data on your customers, on the transactions and the interactions that they have in the CRM, on the product that you are selling. And that is going to stop you for either creating demand or for selling or servicing. The second bucket is about purchasing. And I see these very often where people in purchasing or supply chain, they wanted to do a great job, but they are struggling with the data that is given to them either to make decisions or to execute. And this comes in different flavors and colors. But today what we know is that people are spending anything around 60% of their time just validating the data that is given them from the ERP system, which is definitely in 2024, that shouldn't be the case. The third one is sourcing. So when you wanted to find new vendors, you want to find new products, that's where, not having the right product data is not helping you out. The last one is, well, fulfillment is the fourth one. And in fulfillment, what I refer is running distribution businesses. I was, really bummed when I was walking into a warehouse and I saw people that for them, in order to pull product or to ship product, they have to figure out the instructions or the flow down that were coming from the order. And they have to make decisions that they shouldn't be making, right? Or they were very convoluted process to make that because the data was not right. And the last one is inventory, right? And that's what we focus on inventory today, and how that data is really being a barrier for your business growth. So I wanted to give you an example here what we find. This is fake data of a fake customer, but this is something that we find very often, which is when we are able to access our customers or prospect data, we can see just by sorting data at the product group level that there are thousands of SKUs that they don't have a classification in the product, right? And this is just basic reporting. I'm pretty sure that you guys are in finance or operations or an IT actually developing reporting. You find this out where there's a lot of product groups missing for information. And this is a barrier for business growth. So bad data and the challenge for effective inventory management. Same thing. There are many causes for that excess inventory. So let's talk about 6 of them. The first one of excess inventory is the lack of market awareness. That means that either products or competitors are behaving differently or have different dynamics that you are not aware of. And that happens to all of us. I mean, that's something common that happens. The next one is inadequate forecast methods, right? In this one, I've seen a lot of distributors where the methods that they have for forecasting are very outdated, or they are not even measuring the accuracy of the forecast. The third one is high levels, high service levels. In this one is quite important because, I mean, for A and B items, it's clearly that you want to have high levels, but we have seen a lot of companies that they have high level targets for C and D items that sometimes doesn't make sense for the return that you can have in investment. The next one is suboptimal purchasing decisions. As I mentioned before, sometimes, well, a lot of the times, your team in purchasing are, taking 50 to 60% of the time just validating data, and that's a suboptimal purchasing process, and their decisions are made in a rush. The fifth one is supply chain volatility. I mean, I don't need to explain this one because we have been experiencing that in COVID and post-COVID. And the last one is mismanagement of product life cycle. And I wanted to spend some time here because this is something that I haven't found that many distributors in the US and Canada that they really have good product life cycle. I found more than often that products are just being created and nobody's taking from the genesis of the product to the sunset of the product. So let me share with you a couple of challenges that maybe your organization is experiencing because they don't have a good product life cycle, process. So the first one is, what about finding another source for specific items with other vendors? This is the typical example where a vendor of yours is not performing, let's say on-time delivery, or maybe that vendor is in a geographical area that you don't want to do business at this point and you wanted to switch that source to somewhere else. But when you are providing them information about the items that you wanted to buy, they quite not understand what you're asking for. Either description is wrong or something is not working. The second one is increased buying power or aggregate volume. This is typically, especially now that some of you guys may be experiencing some softness in the marketplace, and you have these commodities or product group that you have been buying for 2, 3, 4 different vendors, and you wanted to make sure you aggregate that volume so you get a little bit more of margin. The third one is understand the share of what. So if you don't have really good product data in your system, you are not going to understand what are your customers buying. You are not going to understand, with accuracy, what is the share of what, right? Which is quite important, especially in a soft environment. The next one is having customers finding pros in your website. So, I mean, this is a perfect example. I spoke with a prospect a couple of months ago. They are adding 1 or 2 different lines to the whole distribution system, and they have all this process of getting there and buying stuff. But we're asking, are you guys have a process in place to make sure those products are going to be in your website with the descriptions and everything, the metadata for your customers to find those products when they are, in your website? And their face was not, I would say, that positive about that. And the last one is cross-sell. So these are some of the challenges that you guys may be facing, right? And when you face the challenge, like we face it, Eric and myself, basically you have, I think, 3 options. You have one option that is not do anything, but that's not what we're wanting you guys to think about it. The first one is a manual process. I think everyone has done this sometime in their career, like manually trying to clean data. The second one is using Excel and Python, Excel or Python and Python. And you need to have a developer, you need to find pilot and so forth. And the next one is automate. And this is where Wrangleworks has done a fantastic job. So let me pass over to you, Eric, and you can wow the audience with what you guys have developed.
All right. Thanks, Nelson. Hi, everyone. Go to that next slide, Nelson. That was quite a setup, and I am excited to show you a quick demo. I want to transition by acknowledging that the reason a lot of people, a lot of companies do data work by hand is the type of data work we're talking about, getting data ready for these various distribution business processes is very hard. It's very complex. And it's complex because typically you're trying to integrate and align data from multiple systems, from multiple domains. Some of that data is from your internal systems, but much of it comes from outside your company, from suppliers or third-party data providers. And so there's a lot of context. There's a lot of know-how that's typically required to blend and prep, if you will, data to support, whether it's e-commerce. We're specifically talking about inventory optimization, broadly speaking, better analytics as a company. And so you can see down there in the bottom right that there are a lot of issues with trying to tackle this data challenge by hand, right, but manually. And, quite honestly, doing it with a sort of build it yourself from the bottom up using technology, advanced technology like Python or AI, it's possible, perhaps for the largest, but it's really not a practical approach for most companies because of the amount of skill and time it takes to develop systems like that. So it's hard, and because it's so hard and complicated, it's manual, but it doesn't have to be. So when we talk about the opportunity with our customers and with people who are interested in moving beyond the manual approach, I think we all have a shared vision, which in a word is automation, right? So the question at the top of mind for most is, how can I take all of this hard work where people are banging on the keyboard day in and day out, in a sense, stuck on this data treadmill, and get to a place where the vast majority of the data flows, the data cleaning and preparation is automated, right? So that your processes and your analytics are provided with rich, reliable data feeds, but without all of the hands-on effort that today's approach entails. And I think Nelson had done a nice job setting it up, but I'll just reiterate that, data is now finally appreciated as the gold, as the sort of critical asset inside of companies that it wasn't perceived as before, because it can help you grow revenue, it can help you improve margins. All of the initiatives that companies are pursuing have some level of data dependency. So it can really, when automated, when rich and reliable, can really move the needle for your business in a number of measurable ways. Next slide. So I'm going to get to the demo here in just a moment, but before I do, I want to set the context by sharing a general pattern we've observed in working with our customers, and probably a pattern that you or folks within your company are using perhaps without even knowing it. And it's the pattern of getting raw product data ready for an application, a workflow, or a system. And that pattern generally resembles how you might think of overhauling equipment. So on the left, you start with something raw that needs to be prepared, needs to get ready, upgraded, renewed, overhauled. Now that raw data may come from your ERP, from your PIM, it may come from these third-party supplier files or other third-party providers, or it may be a list of products where you've got only a little information and you want to supplement that information so that you can, for example, have a richer product profile out in your web store. So the pattern goes like this. You take the raw data and you break it down, right? You break it into pieces, you standardize, you separate, you clean up those various pieces. Specifically, for example, a lot of times descriptions and titles, even though it's a single field or column in in a database or in an application, it contains multiple pieces of information. Very common, happens just, I think, naturally in these ERP systems where you have a limited number of fields and you're trying to use those fields to, sort of maximally store various pieces of information. So we take all that apart, we clean it up, we standardize it. Secondly, we enrich it. In today's demo, I'm going to focus on classification since it's a foundational type of enrichment, but enrichment could be matching or cross-referencing products. As I said earlier, it could be researching the products out on the web. And the third step in this overhaul pattern is to put the pieces, the information back together, specifically the way you need it for whatever you're trying to do downstream. For example, writing new, consistent, category-specific titles, or consistent product descriptions, or producing files for validation or for QA, or for integration directly into some downstream system. So that's the general pattern. And specifically in the demo, next slide, Nelson, we're going to take, as I said, the ERP data, and we're going to take the columns and the representation we get out of ERP, as raw as it is. We're going to combine and refine those descriptions so that we've got, relatively speaking, a clean input for what we would call the classifier. And the classifier is a type of Wrangle within the Wrangles platform that auto assigns products into your taxonomy. There are different ways that we do this. I'm going to show you what we call a bespoke classifier. But in the enrichment stage here, you're going to see classification. You're also going to see a score, and I'll talk about what that score means. And that first step over there, the extract and standardize, and within the Wrangles tool inside of Excel, I'm going to run a map, and that map is behind the scenes going to call a recipe. I'm using some Wrangles terminology now, but in effect, you could think of that as I'm going to press the easy button, and the easy button is going to prep the data. And then I'm going to press a second easy button where it runs the second recipe, and it's going to do the classification. Today, we're really talking about why and what, why you want to improve your data dexterity as a business and what that's going to do for various activities and optimizations. I'm going to show you the what, how the tool can make that easy. We'd love to talk with you more later about the how, but we're not going to really get into the how. So with that, I'm going to do this quick demo. All right. So what we're showing here in the inside of Excel is just a slice of data from an ERP system. You could think of this, broadly speaking, as MRO data. You can see there's a bunch of different stuff in here, a couple of thousand rows. What you see on the left is the Wrangles interface within Excel. You can operate it without Excel, but the primary business user is interacting with it through what we call the Wrangles Excel task pane over here on the left. You can get this add-in today after this call and install it, subject to your IT not having blocked it. And again, there's ways that we can help you work with IT to get it unblocked. But once you get the add-in, you can start immediately using it. There's a free version and set of capabilities, right? So my Wrangles is referring to content, Wrangles and recipes that you would have created for yourself. There are different types of Wrangles. Stock Wrangles are these free ones. They just work right out of the box. And recipes are simply a series of Wrangles. You could think of recipes like a macro on steroids, AI powered, but still conceptually a macro. It does a number of steps to produce some desired output. Okay. So what we're going to do, as I said, is press the easy button twice. The first thing that we're going to do is run a map. And by the way, I'll just say, you can see I've got a lot of Wrangles here in my Wrangles library. That's what happens over time. These become reusable assets of your company. They can then extract and standardize, look up information with the click of a button. I'm going to just filter this list to webinar specific. Lots of things you can do to make it easy to manage. Lots of Wrangles, including tagging those Wrangles. But this map, what we're going to do with the map is standardize our data and, like I said, refine and clean the descriptions so that we get the best result from the classifier. To run a map, and a map is essentially a target set of columns, or maybe a little more data speak, a target schema. That schema can include things like data types and so forth, but for today, we're keeping it super simple. We want to map the data in this sheet to this target. Right? Now, we use AI for a lot of things in the platform. One of the things we use it for here semantically is to say, what does the manufacturer underscore part underscore no column likely map to? In fact, it learns these mappings over time as you apply them. And so if you're mapping data a lot from systems and files to others, that's a very convenient tool. But that's really all that we needed to do. And we'll hit run, and you're going to see pop out in a new sheet here in just a moment, the data that's ready for us to classify. So that was the first easy button. And we're halfway through the process. Okay. So it's the same data that was over here in the raw input. We've just cleaned it up a bit, put it together.
All right. So Eric, let me pause here, because I think a lot of the people watching these, they will be wondering. So are you saying that someone having an Excel, right? Excel that they can find, that they have, everyone is working, especially the people in this webinar that are in the IT systems operation that are really familiar with Excel. They just need to have Excel and Wrangle install, and they can dump their ERP data, right? As dirty, can you go back to ERP data here, Eric, just to show? Because this is a typical thing that we got. Like in manufacturer part number, we have a bunch of things without any part number. We have a bunch of descriptions that are completely a mess, and extended description that is, being, populated for over a year. So based on these great example of how bad data looks like, they just need to click two buttons that you say, and they will get the map to classify. That's what you are stating right here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
It's we're trying to live up to the title of the webinar. Yeah,
okay,
it's
awesome.
It's easier than you think.
All right, awesome. Perfect, Eric. Please keep going.
You bet. So we've prepped the data, and now we're actually going to press the second easy button, run a recipe that does the classification. So this is the payoff. Really, the first step was just getting us ready, but this will be the payoff. Now, we called it classify show all levels because you'll see that we've got a multi-level hierarchy that we're mapping or assigning these items to. Now, there's a lot in this output, even though it was just one button that I clicked. I'm going to start with the first, these two columns here. This is that cleaned up description. And this is the category, if you will, sometimes people call it the leaf node, the lowest level in the hierarchy that this Wrangle has assigned it to. I'll talk about the validate column in a minute, but I'll just scroll over and you can see, in this particular hierarchy for this particular item, hand and power tools, measurement levels, plumb bobs, right? So that's what we were able to do with the Wrangle, is assign that product to the lowest level in their hierarchy. And this score is saying that the model is absolutely confident that it's put that item into the right place in the category. Now, as I go down, you'll see the scores go down. The model isn't perfect, and it certainly can't resolve ambiguous descriptions. If something could be in one of three places in your hierarchy, it can't absolutely say it should be, number 3. But the score, among other things, is a powerful tool to say, we're pretty sure we've got it right, just pass it through, load it, whatever, send it downstream. And then if the score is in some middle range, perhaps we have someone QA it. If the scores are too low, it may be that it's just junk data and we want to throw it out. I'll scroll through and allow, if you will, you all in the audience to eyeball. I think in this particular classification model, there are literally thousands of leaf nodes. So you can imagine that that the model had a lot to learn. This was actually trained on a specific customer's data and their hierarchy. But it gives you a sense of how this works. And as I said, as you go down, the score goes down. Now, one last thing I'll talk about. Nelson, you were going to say?
Yeah, I have a question here, right? So I remember doing this by myself in Excel, and I have maybe a file with 10,000 SKUs, right? And I have to crunch that during the weekend and all that. So what you are saying is you can use this recipe in order to definitely tackle the low-hanging fruit that the model can work with. So I have confidence on the results. So I don't need to be worried about that part. And you can do some QA, right?
Yeah.
To people to review that part. But again, we need to do that QA anyway.
Yeah. But instead of
And the beauty, instead of me going to 10,000 rows one by one checking, is that maybe the model can help me out with maybe 60, 70%, I don't know, whatever, that I can feel confidence. And then I have a bucket of SKUs that I need to define if I need to clean it right now or I go to a different process, right? So this is an iteration process, but it's giving me a result right away. I don't need to wait a week, a month, a year, and I don't need to have a data engineer. I don't need to have a data scientist. I don't need to have anything, just Excel and how to, click a couple of buttons on your application, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
Yeah,
So sorry, I interrupted. You were about to say something.
Well, I just to like summarize your point, Nelson, and talk about our customers' experience. There is work to set up the Wrangles platform for the business, right? We won't pretend there's zero effort, but the productivity increase in terms of data work, the cycle time, the sort of saved time, orders of magnitude difference, right? Orders of magnitude.
Yeah, got it.
I wanted to just make 2 more points and then we'll keep going. You notice here in this validate column, some were validated true, some were validated false. That was simply a rule. We said based on our experience, if the model score is above 0.8, we're going to call it validated and therefore we would just load it. If it's below 0.8, we want somebody to QA it. I'm going to show you something. It's one of the reasons that we built in Excel is because this is where people do data work. Another reason we built in Excel is we get all the Excel functionality for free in a sense. As an example, Excel just launched something new in their user interface called a checkbox. And what a checkbox now allows you to do is easily say yes or no, true or false. And so when somebody is here validating the data that needs their attention, they can very quickly go through, say, yes, it is or isn't, and so forth. So just wanted to make that point. And then I mentioned when I set up the demo that last step of reassembly and producing outputs for various purposes. This is a sheet that a person might go through to QA the last bit where that's necessary. This is an example of a sheet, which the recipe produced both of these. You probably didn't notice, but when I ran the recipe here, it produced 2 new sheets. This is a sheet that's just meant to represent, hey, I can upload those 0.8s and above directly into my PIM, for example, right? Or directly into my, back into my ERP or whatever the case may be. So that really, I would say, is an example of that overhaul pattern where we take typical data, ERP data, we're able to auto-classify it with a couple of clicks once this is all set up and have a dramatic impact on productivity and scalability in the business. That was it for the demo. Nelson, I'll stop sharing.
That's awesome. All right, let's go over.
So as with Intuilize, Wrangleworks is exclusively focused on distribution businesses. And to that end, we've identified what we would call use cases or solutions, 6 of these solutions where data is on the critical path, right, to the business process, to some sort of, bigger business objective. At the core, managing product content, that use case is literally foundational for all the others, but you can think of it especially being relevant for your web store, right, for getting rich, reliable content into the catalog. We showed auto classification, match, dedupe, whether you've acquired or not. You probably have use cases for either cross-referencing one set of products to another or cleaning up dupes that found their way into your various databases. Product research agent to search the web and pull back data so that you can enrich your products in an automated fashion. Automating and streamlining the process of getting cost updates from your suppliers into your system, and then bid responses. So these are the 6 most common use cases where people are using Wrangles to streamline the process.
Awesome, Eric. Yeah. So, I mean, I will be using some of these what you're describing here to the audience to go over the next cases. All right. So let's, at the beginning of the webinar, I start talking about how bad data is not going to help you with your growth. And what I wanted to show here is how, a success case of going from data, being a barrier to be a success story. And all the data here is going to be masked because we don't share any of our customer data with anyone. So, but it's going to expose to you guys or describe to you guys, kind of the use case. In this case, distributor H, which was our customer, they have 100,000 SKUs, 5,000 customers, and 200 vendors. They have been acquiring other distributors in the last 5 years. And when they start engaging with us, they say, hey, by the way, I bought a new business, a distributor B. And this new business have 15,000 SKUs, 1,750 customers, and 70 vendors. And the big question was, what is the overlap, right? And I think for distributors, either buying other distributors or distributors trying to add new lines or new geographies and so forth, they are looking for what is the impact of this. So the way I'm going to describe the success story, I will start with the end. I want to show you first what success look like with numbers. So for those in our audience that are, general managers, owners, operators, and so forth, they can get numbers about what success look like. So the first thing that we helped them out with was saving them labor. In this case, the COO and the CFO and 2 other, the most brilliant people on the distribution was doing all these cleansing, product, customer, vendor, right? To understand this overlap. So the first thing is they didn't have to use this time, and it was around 30K that they saved on that. As Eric says, setting things up may take some time, but the productivity gains are gigantic. The second thing is they were able to increase the gross margin by consolidating volume. So in the first year, this is extremely important when you are in a soft environment and you wanted to consolidate, you wanted to use your purchasing power, regardless if you're a 10, 20, 50, 500 million, company, you have purchasing power with certain vendors and you may want to consolidate volume. So when you have those items, right, and you know what you are buying from whom, you can do that. And the third one is what I call the jackpot. And the jackpot was in the past when they were buying these businesses, it took them anything from 6 months up to 2 years to get all those new items from distributor B loaded into the ERP system in a way where the salespeople feel comfortable selling. In this case, we were to do this in weeks, and they were to get all these items loaded in the ERP system, so the salespeople will start selling those items to the customers that they have. Now, this success case, how we're able to do that. So let me go through the process. The first thing is, generate product taxonomy. This is just an example of the attributes. I think Eric mentioned in his demo, how, his tool is able to create this for you guys and learn for you. This is just an example. Maybe other attributes depending on the industry that you're working on. Then after that, we help match on the due product data. So that's going to all these different databases to go to one database that was the source of truth. The third one is we're able to update the PEM and start talking about data governance. And this is something that I wanted to pause just for 30 seconds because we have distributors watching this webinar. And I wanted to make sure I communicate this properly, which is data governance is extremely important. If you guys take the time, and it's important for you to have clean data, also should be important to create guide rails that you guys can use to make sure that the product life cycle or vendor life cycle or customer life cycle is within those constraints that you have set. So you are not, inflecting point once you have cleaned the data. So with this case, what we did is once we had that PIM and data governance data in place, we did an inventory evaluation. So of the distributor B, we were able to evaluate the inventory. We knew exactly what parts we wanted to classify as an A, B, C, D, how to sell it, and so forth. And we helped them out to improve working capital. And that's going to be my next slide. So this is kind of two of the main things that we're able to achieve with them. And as I mentioned, they were able to offer to all the customers the bigger portfolio of products right away without waiting months or years to get it done, and consolidate volume with key vendors. So this is kind of the process look like. But again, the fundamental part here is you need to do these three things. There is no way that you can go and avoid this, and it's your choice. You want to do it manually, you want to use Excel, or you want to use a tool like, Eric described. And that's what we partner with Wrangleworks, because we don't want to do this manually, and we love to use his application in order to make sure we can provide that to our customers. All right, so how we went from clean data to actionable analysis. Once we clean all this data, so we're able to run our models on the inventory that they have. We're able to identify healthy and unhealthy inventory. If that's something that you guys are interested, please just reach out to us and we can describe to you how we come up with this. And then we have some prescribed actions that they can take actions right away. They didn't need to wait for 3-6 months. They already knew that they need to follow in these items, because we were able to compare the quotes versus the orders, and we saw that something was wrong there. So it could be new competitors, it could be vendors, flushing the marketplace with product, it could be customer changing habits, it could be many things. And in this case, reduce price. So since we have a price optimization platform as well, we're able to identify which products they were not able to sell at the speed that they wanted because of price. So we help them out with these prescribed actions. Then after that, we help them out optimize the replenishment parameters in their ERP system, which they start ingesting and making better decisions in purchasing. And with that, we're able to improve their overall working capital, right? As you guys can see here, we're able to segment their products in the different categories here, from the typical ABCD up to the other ones that we use. We're able to reduce, again, this is fake data, around $1 million in working capital, keeping kind of the same service levels, which, as you guys know, it's a little bit of a challenge. And then after that, we really wanted to focus on the C items. In this case, we were able to come and reduce $1 million of inventory and keeping the service levels as they were. So going from bad data, coming to good data, be able to classify, be able to sell more, be able, and I want to explain again, able to eliminate labor, able to increase gross margin right away because you are buying better, and it has the whole product information. So this is a good success case about how having clean data in your system can help you out to become a success story. And this is the last slide that we have for you guys. And I think Eric and myself were talking about this, and we have been, saying it, and this is quite important. Why data is fundamental for your business. So, Eric, if you guys can, walk us through this slide for our audience, please.
Yeah, you bet. I joke, all businesses are in some sort of ization process, whether it's migration, integration, personalization, automation, optimization. You've got that going on, and well, you should be. Some of that's AI powered and some of it's machine learning, or but it's all data dependent. And we've said it over and over because it's so important to appreciate you have to do data work one way or the other. And the faster and the better you can do it, getting data ready for all these izations, the more business benefit you're going to derive, the more you're going to become data literate, and the more ultimately you can grow your business, you can innovate and break out from the pack. So it's foundational. That's in word, it is foundational.
Yeah, exactly. And again, this one, I wanted to encourage everyone on the audience that, again, I think in the past was really hard. Even we as an Intuilize, we have a hard time sometimes cleansing data, and it took us a lot of time. And now I think Eric and his company able to solve that in a very easy way. I don't think it will be something as easier to use Excel that you guys have and be able to do that. And that data will be able to help you out to grow, improve your inventory, and do so many things, but you need to start there. So I think we have a couple of questions, Jason, and from the audience. So if you can start sharing those ones with us, so we can start getting here.
We do indeed. So the first one came up whilst Eric was doing his presentation. It's from Rob. Wants to know, does the Wrangle solution learn from corrections of low score items, that the number of manual corrections is reduced as you go forward?
You bet. Hi, Rob. Good to hear from you. So he actually asked two, and I'll talk about both of those. So these are AI, specifically machine learning based models. They do indeed get better when you feed them updated, or in this case, corrected information. And the different learning mechanisms that are employed, it depends on which version of our auto classifier that you would be using, but it certainly would improve over time. And the second question had to do with, can AI help to either design a new taxonomy or refine the existing one? Generally, yes, absolutely. Generally speaking, we and our customers would use it to refine. And I say that because very few companies have a chance to blow things up and start with a clean piece of paper. And so the AI can identify, actually just running the auto classifier identifies inconsistency in your hierarchies. And those are areas where then you can use it to come up with some ideas on how to make it better so that they're cleaner, it's less ambiguous. AI gets smarter and it can help improve the hierarchy.
Yeah, on that one, Eric, I think the only two chances that you have to do things from scratch is either you're starting a new distribution business or you are changing your ERP system, right?
Yeah, right.
And I think in the audience we have a couple of people that are maybe thinking about that. So again, if I have this tool 10 years ago when I have to migrate a lot of ERP systems, I will use it because you can create a taxonomy and you can go from a trashy taxonomy to a taxonomy that you wanted to have, and you can enrich the data. And that's the other thing. When you're doing that transition, I think it's important that if you're chasing 100%, I mean, that's a huge benchmark, right? I think if you go for the 80-20, 90-10, whatever it is going to be super successful, right? In terms of fixing the taxonomy and so forth. I have a question for you, Eric. And I think I asked you this question before. So if someone in the audience wanted to have some recommendations about creating a taxonomy or improving the taxonomy, I mean, beyond the AI, I think you have doing this so much that you can do that, right? I mean, you can say, hey, guys, this could be a taxonomy that I see that is working, right? Just to give them a framework for them to think about it, right?
Yeah, you bet. There's actually a pretty simple data science technique to do that. I won't go into too much detail, but when you train a model to assign categories or classifications, or you use a model maybe that's not trained, it would be supervised or unsupervised. In any case, when you run the model against your existing products, you'll see specifically where the model agrees with your current assignment, and then you'll identify places where it disagrees. And you'll also see those scores. In many cases, the model is highly confident that it's got the assignment right and it agrees with your current assignment. Yeah. And then it may get the assignment right, but it's actually not that confident.
Yeah.
And so by setting up a model and running it against the data you have in hand, you've got several ways, if you will, pockets of insight that are immediately available to highlight where your taxonomy or the data that's being assigned to it needs review and potentially improvement.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And again, I just want to reiterate to everyone, this is a journey, right? This is not going to be a one, shot deal. It's a journey, right? So the whole idea of us sharing this with you guys is that you have a greater start that help you out to take you to the 60, 70, 80% in a couple of weeks instead of months or years. And then after that, is going to be some work that you guys need to do to improve that. But I think as a start is great. So I don't know. Hey, Jason, any other question that you have there?
Yeah, got one from Mike. Wants to know, I think this is for you, Nelson. Pricing and inventory optimization, is that one product, two products? Do they work together?
Yeah, so they work together. So when I created Intuilize, I run a couple of distribution businesses in the past. And what I found out running those businesses is that when I was buying something, I was thinking about how I'm going to price this. And when I was pricing something, I was thinking about how much and from where I'm buying it. So today, our model is able to do both things at the same time. We always wanted to start with one so we can understand the business and we wanted to show impact, but they work in unison in terms of price optimization and inventory optimization. Yeah.
Awesome. Question for Eric, can Wrangles be shared across the organization?
Yeah, you bet. One of the, I didn't show in the demo, but Wrangles are basically organizational knowledge, right? When you create and you refine those over time, that becomes the tool set that you can use forevermore across your business. So yes, they have, they're shared, they have specific permissions so that some people are authors or owners of the content, other people can use it, perhaps view all the details, and then lastly, you could have someone who could use it but really doesn't have any visibility or access to modify it.
Okay. Let me ask you a follow-up question, Eric, because I got this question all the time. When you are, let's say, I am a distributor, I have my data, I want to use Excel and your tool, I do it. Is the model learning just from my data or is learning as well from my competitors' data? That's one. And the second thing is, how are you're making sure that the competitor data is not doing or taking advantage of what I'm doing, right? That's kind of the two questions in one that I get all the time. So
yeah, you bet. So there's a long discussion about security and data and so forth that we won't get into. I would say, as it relates to classification specifically and things that we call AI extracts, which also use AI to, in that first step in the process to pull data out and standardize it. Some of our customers allow us to combine their product data, not pricing data, not any transactional data, just product item master data, to blend all of that together to make all of the models smarter, to make all of the models more accurate. Nobody shares the data. We don't share that data with anyone. We use it. I like this analogy. We make a broth from all of the data that customers share, and we get this very rich, powerful foundation for these AI-powered wrangles with that shared data. Okay, but none of that goes from one customer to another, and to the extent that it is shared, it's all separated into different repositories and so forth.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Eric.
Wonderful. I've got a question here. I think this is for everybody. How much do the solutions cost? I don't know if that's something you can share here or whether it needs a bit more information, but I think that's for both of you.
Nelson, you want to go first? You'll close the first deal. I'll go second.
I would say our pricing depends on the size of the distributor, right? So a distributor that is $10, $20 million in annual revenue is going to have different pricing than someone that is $100 or $200 million. And that has to do with the complexity. In our case, what we said to our prospects is that we're looking for you guys to have at least a 3 times ROI. And that's what we're looking for. Our customers are, and we have 100% retention rate, 100% retention rate. Our customers love the fact of the value that they are receiving. That's the whole idea, right? So we're in the game of long-term relationships. We're in the game of providing value to all of them. So that's my answer. What about you, Eric?
Yeah, ours, we think about, I mentioned, and we talked about the foundational nature of data. We're a means to an end. There are certainly lots of value props that are measurable associated with better data, but we price our software more like a tool. Okay, and so the setup for that simply is to say that you can visit the website. You'll see that the Wrangles Excel basic seat is $100 per user per month. And then there's additional costs depending on the number of solutions that you might add on top of that, like classification. But the pricing is fairly straightforward in terms of how much you use the tool and which tools you use. Awesome. I see one other question, Jason. I don't want to.
We got two. I said we got two just came in.
Yeah.
One from Frank, one from an anonymous attendee. So
should I do that?
One from if you want to read them out and answer them live, that'll be great.
All right. Yeah. So Frank asked, can the model be used to find a specific part in our product data from a part description provided by a customer? Absolutely. The general way we think about that process, RFP response, which uses matching. I didn't talk about AI. I didn't say AI every other sentence intentionally today, but many of the capabilities in our platform are AI powered, specifically matching products. We use a technique called semantic similarity that is very effective in taking a customer description and figuring out what product that most likely would be in your item master. So yes, that's one of the capabilities. Okay, and there's another. Are there other functional uses for Wrangleworks other than data cleaning, or is the primary value classification for purposes of my PIM? Yeah, the use cases literally are unlimited, limited by your imagination, your needs. As I said, it is a tool, it is a platform for data transformation, data integration. And so distributors have acute issues with product data. And so a lot of time, most of the time, that's where we start helping people with product data. but we certainly can help with customer data, inventory data, whatever, whatever needs to be addressed.
Yeah, just complementing your answer there, Eric. I think on this one and for the anonymous user, I think definitely is going to be the data is fundamental for everything that you wanted to do, but the use cases, and I think Eric went to a couple of them. It just depends on the pain point that you have, right? If you wanted to grow sales and that's the main thing, how are you using product data and customer data to achieve that? If your challenge is going to be inventory, how is it going to work? If your challenge is going to be customer service, can you use that? So it just depends on the challenge that you have is going to be the solution. But regardless, you need to have the data clean to make that happen. That's the whole thing. You need to have that in order to be successful, right? All right. So do we have any other question, Jason?
Somebody asked for some clarity. Oh, here we go. Frank's asked another one. Can I run a Wrangle from an API call instead of within Excel?
You bet. You bet. If Frank, I don't know if you're on the more technical side, but yeah, the entire platform is API based and it's written in Python. It runs in the cloud. So there's all sorts of ways that you can incorporate wrangles and recipes into some process or data pipeline. Okay.
Wonderful. And then there's one from Christine. Yeah. How does your process work with abbreviations and very short and possibly inconsistent descriptions?
Yeah, I'll say really well, to some sort of limit. So abbreviations, first of all, that's a great use case for wrangles. And I mentioned you sort of build up over time. It basically becomes a repository where any and all abbreviations that are used in your business or your suppliers or your industry are incorporated into the wrangles and the recipe. So it deals with abbreviations really well. The ambiguous descriptions, as I said, to the extent that there's enough there, it may be represented, may be expressed in some weird way with abbreviations and crazy sequence and some noisy information blended in. But AI-powered wrangles in particular can sift through all of that and still get to the right answer.
Yeah, and I think that's quite powerful, especially when you're building a PIM. So I remember in the fastener industry, a lot of people use SS for stainless steel because in the old days, systems were limited on the number of characters. So you had to put the description in a 50 field, lane field. Now that's not the case. So sometimes you wanted to go from the old school abbreviation to more very descriptive details so you can have that in your website, for example, or you wanted to use that when you're going to source those products out there. So that's definitely a huge advantage there. All right, so I think we're almost done. We wanted to appreciate everyone for the time. If you guys have any questions, any comments, any concern, any ideas that we can help you with, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. In the presentation that we're going to share with you guys, you can see our contact information about this. So we'll be more than happy to help you out with any of the questions that you guys have. And really appreciate your time. Again, this will be recorded and sent it. If you guys feel that someone in your organization can be benefit from this, please send it to them. We are love to work with them, love to understand what they have to do. And again, it's very simple. So there is no excuse anymore. In the past was
no excuse.
Exactly. In the past, anyone here was like, oh man, this is hard. It's as easy as Excel. So I'm pretty sure 100% of the people in this webinar knows how to use Excel. It's a plugin and start doing that super easy. So Eric, Jason, thank you very much for guys putting this together, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
All right.